Two men convicted of killing the US civil rights activist Malcolm X are to have their convictions overturned after more than half a century. Prosecutors say Khalil Islam, pictured here, and Mohammed Aziz did not get justice. In Sudan, 14 demonstrators are believed to have been shot dead after police opened fire on people protesting against the military coup. There are also reports of many arrests in the capital. The US Capitol rioter, nicknamed the QAnon Shaman, has been sentenced to 41 months in prison. Jacob Chansley had pleaded guilty to obstruction of an official proceeding after taking part in the storming of the Senate chamber. And the UK's House of Commons has voted to ban MPs taking paid work as political consultants after a row over a Conservative MP who was found to have broken lobbying rules.
President Biden has indicated that he will announce his choice for the next chairman of the Federal Reserve towards the end of this week. A White House official subsequently said the president would make his decision before next week's Thanksgiving holiday. Biden is considering whether to reappoint Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, whose term ends in February, or select Fed Governor Lael Brainerd as his successor. Workers at farm equipment maker Deere are set to vote today on a third contract offer. It includes a roughly 4% boost in incentive pay for increasing production, while leaving other proposals unchanged. Deere workers have been on strike for more than a month. Pfizer has asked the Food and Drug Administration to authorize its COVID-19 antiviral pill for use in high-risk patients. This means the drug, which Pfizer says cuts the risk of hospitalization or death, could be available for people to take at home by the end of the year. Initial supplies of Pfizer's pill, called Paxlovid, would be limited. A source said the U.S. was working on a contract for 10 million courses of treatment. Markets in Asia ended mixed, and European shares wavered in early trading. In the U.S., investors will be watching new home building figures due out this morning, and Target, Nvidia, and Cisco Systems are among the companies reporting earnings today. We have a lot more coverage of the day's news on the WSJ's What's News podcast. You can add it to your playlist on your smart speaker or listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
20 years ago, energy giant Enron was considered one of the most innovative companies in the world. But in late summer 2001, the company's top executive resigned out of the blue. That set my colleague Rebecca Smith and me on a reporting journey with an end we never imagined.
We begin here in Japan, where officials are getting ready to provide a third round of coronavirus vaccines in 2 weeks as the number of new infections remains low. Officials across Japan reported 204 new cases on Wednesday and 5 deaths. Tokyo had 27 new infections. The government plans to start administering a third jab of the Pfizer vaccine next month. Moderna has applied for approval of its shot as a booster. The minister in charge of vaccinations says a total of 37 million doses of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines will be delivered to local governments between February and March. The health ministry is still considering whether to allow children between the ages of 5 and 11 to be vaccinated. It asked local authorities to prepare to start this around February if approved. About 75% of Japan's population have been fully vaccinated, but health experts are warning a resurgence is still possible.
As it gets colder, people tend to spend more time indoors. Social and economic activities will likely increase due to annual events towards the year end. We ask everyone to continue to take basic anti-infection measures.
Breakthrough infections and the drastic easing of restrictions have led to rising cases in some countries. South Korea has vaccinated more than 78% of its population, but it reported over 3,000 new cases on Tuesday. The South Korean government has decided to allow senior citizens and hospitalized patients to receive a booster shot 4 months after their second jab. That interval is 2 months shorter than its original plan. The United States is looking to use the momentum from this week's summit with China to further ease tensions. U.S. President Joe Biden and China's Xi Jinping left the virtual meeting with a positive outlook, but without issuing any concrete agreements. Now Biden hopes new bilateral discussion groups will bring results.
It was a good meeting. We got a lot to follow up on. We set up 4 groups. We're going to get our folks together on a whole range of issues. Good to see you.
Biden did not elaborate, but promised an update within 2 weeks. His national security advisor earlier said the focus will be strategic stability. Jake Sullivan says the president directed the teams towards security, technology, and diplomacy. The newly intensified negotiations come as both sides appear far apart on key issues, including trade and human rights. Next, to an emotional homecoming for an American journalist who spent nearly half a year jailed in Myanmar. He's one of many thousands of people swept up in a deadly military crackdown on the media and protesters. Danny Fenster landed in New York on Tuesday. The managing editor of online English-language magazine Frontier Myanmar was detained in May. That's 3 months after the military seized power in a coup. Now, just days before Fenster was freed, he was sentenced to 11 years in prison for charges that include spreading false information. Former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Bill Richardson, negotiated Fenster's release. The journalist thanked him for ending a nightmare that remains ongoing for many doctors, teachers, and other civilians.
Thank you. This will be a short little celebration, but let's keep focused on what the actual story is here.
U.S. media reported Fenster was not beaten in custody, but other detainees have alleged mistreatment. A local human rights group says Myanmar's security forces have killed more than 1,200 people and arrested 10,000 others. Worsening air pollution in India's capital, New Delhi, has forced authorities to indefinitely shut all schools. Cholapansa Narul at our bureau in Bangkok has the details.
Several parts of the city on Tuesday recorded PM 2.5 levels of over 400 on a scale of 500 in the last 24 hours. This is categorized as severe under the country's guidelines. School closures started on Monday, but the Commission for Air Quality Management in New Delhi has extended the shutdown until further notice. The panel also said at least 50% of government workers should work from home until this weekend. Health experts have reported a rise in lung and respiratory diseases due to the worsening smog. Doctors are warning people to stay indoors and avoid exposure to the toxic haze. Concerns are growing as the city is still struggling with coronavirus-related infections. New Delhi often ranks as one of the world's most polluted capitals. The controversial issue of crop stubble burning by farmers is said to be contributing to the air pollution. Emissions from transport vehicles are also blamed. Staying in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has inaugurated the country's newest expressway. The road in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh will double as an emergency military airstrip to bolster the country's defences. Modi landed in a C-130 military transport plane to kick off Tuesday's inauguration ceremony.
The Purvanchal Expressway has become an arm and new strength of our Air Force.
The ceremony was followed by an air show by the Indian Air Force. Various fighter jets showcased their landing skills on a stretch of the 341-kilometer motorway. Defense experts say such expressways will enhance India's operational flexibility and war-fighting capabilities in case of any threats from China and Pakistan. The government plans to develop more sections of the country's highway system as emergency runways. Australia has endured multiple coronavirus lockdowns, sometimes making it difficult for people with disabilities to get the services they need. But a Japanese music therapist is doing what she can to continue creating bonds with people. NHK World's Aoki Midori has this report.
Nago Izumi, a music therapist, works with about 30 people with disabilities. When lockdowns were implemented in Australia due to the pandemic, she moved sessions online. She found there are advantages to working this way.
We are only able to meet up once a week, but working online has actually increased the feeling that they are letting me into their lives.
Nago came to Australia 2 decades ago to attend university. After graduating, she started to work as a music therapist in Sydney. She sees her job as healing people's hearts. Luke Abdallah has been taking Nago's therapy for longer than almost anyone. When he started working with her 15 years ago, he had difficulty communicating with others and rarely raised his head. But after 1 year, they had a breakthrough. Luke started making sounds with musical instruments to accompany Nago's singing.
It was really hard to get him to engage in anything. But Azumi sings beautifully and plays beautifully, and they just clicked. Over time, he's gained more confidence and become a much more open person.
In music therapy, music itself becomes a tool for communication. People with disabilities are especially good at entering the world of music. I am still amazed at how music facilitates communication.
Alan Wallace started music therapy 3 years ago. When sessions switched to online, he looked uninterested, often gazing at her blankly. Nago says the problem with online sessions is that some clients don't recognize her on a computer screen due to a lack of internet experience. But after a number of sessions, Alan started to wave at Nago. She improvises songs to assist Alan with daily tasks at home. Open the cupboard and take your cup. Go on and tap on the water.
I want everyone, regardless of whether they have disabilities or not, to have a happy life as a member of society. I want to do my part to bring that about.
Nago continues to help people with disabilities and their families stay connected during the pandemic. Aoki Midori, NHK World, Sydney.
And that wraps up our bulletin. I'm Cholapansa Narula in Bangkok.
Back here in Japan, major airline company ANA has unveiled the country's largest flight training center. Visitors can get a realistic sense of how pilots and flight crew train for their jobs. ANA Holdings gave the media a preview of the facility on Wednesday. The company integrated separate training operations used by different departments to streamline air transport safety training. The facility can realistically recreate the experience of air turbulence and has more than a dozen flight simulators.
We'd like to show visitors how our employees train and how we work to ensure the safety of our passengers. It is important to demonstrate our work, not only inside airplanes, but also behind the scenes.
Public tours of the center are scheduled to begin in December. Japanese figure skating star Hanyu Yuzuru will withdraw from another competition due to a damaged ligament in his right foot. The setback comes less than 3 months before the start of the Beijing Winter Olympics in February. The Japan Skating Federation made the announcement on Wednesday, citing Hanyu's slow recovery from the injury. It says Hanyu will not compete in the upcoming Grand Prix series set to kick off in Russia later this month. The two-time Olympic gold medalist was absent from the NHK trophy held through Sunday here in Tokyo. Hanyu issued a statement and thanked his supporters. He says he's working hard to recover and measure up to their expectations. And as we've been reporting, people in northern India have been struggling with bad air quality that's caused all schools in the capital to stay closed. Our meteorologist Jonathan O has more on the situation there and elsewhere in our World Weather Report.
Hello, as we go into November and December, usually we start to see a little bit of an inversion type pattern where a lot of the air sinks over in northern areas of India, and that leads to the pollution issues. Notice we're looking at clear skies in terms of the weather, but we are talking about the air sinking, and so that will continue to contribute to issues of air quality as we go forward throughout the next few days. Meanwhile, down toward the south, we have 2 areas of low pressure on either side of India, and that's bringing some real rain into the region. We're looking at some more rain and even some thunderstorms down toward the south as we go into Thursday. Also picking up some rain down into Sri Lanka as well. So we're going to see both of these systems spinning nearby. Chennai likely to get some really intense rainfall as we head into Thursday. With thunderstorms, the high up 27. Hyderabad also 27. Up toward the north, notice it's similar temperatures, but we're seeing mainly clear skies with relatively calm weather. And so that's going to continue to prolong the issues when it comes to air quality. Over in Japan, we are seeing mainly clear skies. We had a little bit of some sea effect type pattern when it came to a little bit of the snow.